So hello, everybody. For those of you who don't know me, my name is David Gazai, and I'm the Director of Member Services and Learning at Orchestras Canada. I'm very excited for this session. I think this topic is something that's on everybody's mind, and if we can get a sense of what's happening, then that can only lead to very positive things. Before we get into the thick of it, I would just like to take a moment and recognize that OC Orchestras Canada is a virtual organization, and we work where we live. My office is in Kingston, Ontario, and I recognize the enduring presence of the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, and the Huron-Wendat. Today's session will be recorded and be made available on OC's website soon. Feel free to share it with your colleagues that could not be here today. I'd also like to ask you to put any questions you might have in the chat. I will be monitoring this, and there will be a Q&A session after the presentation, so I will be relaying your questions to our presenter. I'm extremely happy to introduce Eric Nelson, the Vice President of Global Partnership at TRG Arts. We've collaborated with Eric, and you most definitely have seen him around in our programming in the past couple of years. We've worked with him quite a few times, and we're hoping that today marks the beginning of a great partnership between OC and TRG Arts. In today's session, Eric will showcase TRG Arts Art and Culture Benchmark, which is available for free. The benchmark has proven useful to all its participants, and the more Canadian orchestras participate, the more useful it will be for your own analysis. It will also make Eric's future sessions with us more relevant, as his trend analysis will be based on a bigger pool of data. In fact, Eric will be back with us to give us some updates for you on February 15th, 2024, so save the date. Without further ado, and as none of you came here to hear me talk today, I will now pass the mic to Eric.
Excellent. David, I came here to hear you talk today, so I just put that out there. So
thank you.
Indeed. So David, thank you, Orchestras Canada. Thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure to be with all of you today. And like you heard, my name's Eric Nelson. I'm the Vice President of Global Partnerships for TRG Arts. We are also a virtual company, but I'm joining today from New York City on the ancestral lands of the Lenape, and I offer honor and respect to those people. So again, thank you all so much for having me. I'm eager to share this information with you. I'm going to share my screen so we can jump into things. Hopefully you all can see that. You'll let me know if you can't. And no, as David said, this is being recorded, but you'll also get a copy of this presentation. We'll be sharing it via PDF, so you'll get this information as well. So yeah, what are we here to do? To meet the Arts and Culture Benchmark, to talk about partnership together, and to share. That's sort of the big headline of our collaboration, is to share data, to share information, so we can all help fuel each other's comebacks and fuel the resurgence of our sector together. So as David mentioned, TRG and Orchestras Canada are venturing into a new partnership to help increase more of that sharing and more collaboration together. So for our webinar today, we're gonna get to know what this collaboration is all about with a welcome and talk through some of the goals behind it. Then I'm going to give a tour of our Arts and Culture Benchmark so you can get a sense of what it looks like, what it feels like, what you would get if you participate in it. And then we're going to do a data dive. If you know anything about TRG, you probably have gleaned that we are data geeks. If you haven't, you will learn that we are also data geeks. We work with performing and visual arts organizations of all shapes and sizes to help grow revenue from individuals, ticket buyers, subscribers, donors, and we use data to inform all of that strategy and collaboration building. So we're going to dive into some data today. And then, as David mentioned, we have some time for questions at the end. And know that please do put questions in the chat throughout, especially because we're going to be going into some data today. I always want to make sure that's landing and that you're understanding it. So if you have any questions, happy to pause throughout the presentation to make sure all of the understandings are coming across. So what is the goal of this partnership between Orchestras Canada and TRG? Well, one is really, as you saw on that share screen, to share insights about how and where we're seeing, we call them the sprouts of growth, the shoots of growth within our participation from individuals, to help understand where and how people are coming back And where they're not, and in both of those lenses, build strategies to help grow our revenues stronger, and inviting more people to participate and coming back with regularity, both in ticketing and in donations. So it gets into number 2 here, fueling our recovery together. And not just looking at sector-wide data, but the more orchestras we can have join the data set that we're going to look at today, the more robust that data set will be. So we can start sharing insights, not just about the sector writ large, but also what does comeback and data trends look like within orchestras in Canada. So the more orchestras, the stronger the trend analysis we can do. And then with that, sharing reports back to you all as a sector, as a group, participating in hopefully in this benchmark. Throughout the upcoming year, we plan to share insight reports and have training webinars like the one we're having today to look at what are the trends that are happening within the data and what kind of strategies might we think about building collectively together to help get those shoots and those sprouts to grow as big as possible. So some of you may have heard about the Arts and Culture Benchmark before. I'm going to do a little overview of what it is and then give you a tour of what it looks like. So we started at TRG early on in the pandemic to help quantify the impact of COVID on ticket sales and donation behavior. We essentially just wanted to be able to tell the sector, here's how sales look like today, and this is what they look like pre-pandemic. And it has grown and morphed since then. So there are insights. The data has been used to lobby for relief efforts with governments. It's global. There's participation across the globe in it. And people have used it to model their strategic plans by looking at what is the data telling us. So where it sits today, there's about 500 organizations who are members. It is free to join. UK, Ireland, US, Canada. About of those 500, about 200 are in North America, and you see the breakdown here by genre. About a quarter of that 200 is Canadian organizations falling among these different genres as well. And within the data set, there are about 400 million transactions that we're studying. So it's the largest data set of arts consumption in the world. And organizations who participate in the benchmark, you all hopefully, your data gets shared to us via DDXs, digital data exchanges on a daily basis and donation data with us once a day. And it all gets set up. Once you sign up, we work with you all to set up the link. And once the link is created, you never have to worry about it again. You don't have to pull data and send it to us. None of that. It all happens through an automatic data link between our system and your CRMs. We'll go into some more details about that. But again, the more data that's in the benchmark, the more robust the strategies we can build and the strength we can gain as arts professionals to build more robust approaches and invitations to our communities and our patrons to get them to come and come back with regularity. So what does it look like? Some of you out there may be members already. Even with that, you may not have seen all the bells and whistles of it. So we're going to look at a few of them today. But if you're seeing it for the first time, you go to our website, trgarts.com/benchmark. You see this login screen, just go right there. And when you do, a screen you see that pops up. So I'm showing some screen shares today, but this is all if you're participating in it or have a login. It's all active and constantly updated in real time. So by participating, again, all the people at your organization could have logins as you would like. So members of the marketing department, development, executive teams, things of that nature. So as we look at this, this is the login screen. So I'll give you a quick orientation to what you're looking at. So for your organization, it shows in the last 30 days how much revenue they brought in. So this organization brought in $600,000 in revenue. It compares it back to that same period in 2019. So they're up 49%, pretty impressive. Compared it to last year, 2022. So they're down 2%, but in the ballpark. So that's exciting. And then it compares it back to everybody else in the data set. So in this particular example, we're looking at, this is a North America symphony. We won't say who it is, but it's a live symphony in our data set, and it's compared back to other symphonies in North America. So you see here the benchmark area is North America, the benchmark type is music. If we get enough organizations from Orchestra Canada members joining, we could have this be Canadian, and the benchmark type could all be Canadian orchestras, so that can all be customized for you all. But it gives you a sense of, are we ahead? Are we behind? What does that look like? So this organization probably gets a spoonful of confidence to say we're ahead of what the aggregated data set looks like. It also looks at things like advanced revenue. How much tickets have you sold for future performances? We're going to look at that in a second. It also looks at subscription behavior. So where does your subscription results for the year compare back to everybody else in the data set? Who's coming and what does participation look like from a segmentation standpoint? So we call that customer typology. And we've also got it by donation behavior. So kind of think about those different revenue streams as well as the who's coming from a segmentation perspective. So you kind of get this quick sense of where you are. So again, your data would be the yellow, orange, and then the comparative data is in the blue. Okay, so first let's log into that advanced screen. So this shows a couple of things. Advanced revenue, we're going to be looking here at ticket sales. So this is quantity of tickets. We could also be looking at this through revenue, but we're going to look at it through ticket sales, number of tickets. And we're comparing where we are today. So the last, 12 months we've been in, actually a little bit longer than that. And then it goes back to, you could say last year or pre-pandemic. So we're looking at 2019 as our comparison point. And we've got here a couple of things. Our tickets, so your organization's number of tickets you've sold is in this yellow line month by month. And this looks into advance. So we're in November right now, and it goes all the way into the future. So we can see how many tickets we've sold for productions, concerts coming on down the line. So that's our where we are today. We're comparing it to, so 2019. The blue line is solid blue, is where the aggregated data set is for their future sales this year. And then the dotted line is where the aggregated data set was last year. So you can see these interesting things. So for example, one bright spot here is looking forward to March and April of next year. This particular organization has sold a good amount of tickets for whatever performances are happening in that month. So we've been hearing over and over again folks saying, oh, tickets are selling later than usual. So should we put all of our marketing into a bundle at the last minute, or should we look at it earlier to try to drive some early buying behavior? And this is the kind of dashboard you could look at to say, hey, what does that trend of buying? Are they buying later? Are they buying earlier? Here, this will lead us to believe, oh, yeah, when we've got the kind of programming we're doing in March or April, we should be putting some of our budget into early marketing behind that so we can fuel some of those early sales. So it gives you some of that confidence that way. So that's what advance can tell you. You can also look
Eric?
at, yeah.
Sorry, your video has sort of frozen a few times since the beginning.
Oh,
Could
gosh.
you maybe try, just if you can maybe turn off your video, just if it makes a difference, we can see.
Yeah, let me try that. I apologize. I'm
All right.
going to stop my video. You've seen what I look
Thank you.
like, right? So,
Thank you.
excellent. Yeah. So please, David, let me know if that continues to happen or not. Do I need to go back? Or keep
No, that's
moving
okay.
forward? Yeah.
That's okay. Thank you.
Okay, sure. Great. So let's look at subscription behavior. So this is another thing we can slice and dice in a few ways. So we're looking at revenue here and packages. You could also look at it at tickets or number of patrons. And we're looking at a few things here, comparing where we are this year versus, again, 2019. You could switch to 2022 if you'd like to. But the pink bar here is the number of packages we've sold, or the revenue for packages this year. The lighter pink is what we sold last year. The yellow that we're comparing is what the data set looked like. So we've got some historical numbers to look at. So one interesting thing people are looking at here is how does, as we've come back from the pandemic, we haven't gotten back to renewing or sending out renewals as early as we used to. Should we do that? Or should we be spacing that out a little later? Example here is last year, or actually in 2019, February of 2023 had a huge spike, or a beginning spike, of renewing probably subscribers since it was so early in the year. This organization waited till March of this year to put essentially subscription strength behind renewals. Perhaps we could even think about going back a month earlier, since we had some heat historically, and we do see people, participating when we put those offers out there. So it can give some sense of strength and ideas there. Also, look at the fall, the remainder of this year. If we look at the light pink, what happened in 2019, we still had not a lot, but some heat of subscription sales going. It's been a little less so far this year. So we might want to put some more resources into selling subscriptions even later in the calendar year, because we have some historical precedent around that. So those are the kind of things you can glean from subscriptions. Typology here, looking at who's coming. So we use the segmentation scheme that doesn't just look at product lines, so think singles or subscriptions, but actually looks at cohesive participation across those. So we have these categories, and you could click here to get the definitions, but first timers, people who are coming back to have their second experience, convertees having their second, third, fourth experience, active folks coming back 4 or 5 up to 10 times, super actives, people who have had a history of 10 plus experiences with us. Re-engagement, again, stale and lapsed. These are people who haven't been here stale in 18 months or more, lapsed 3 years or more past. And this organization's data is again in the yellow. The aggregate data set is in the blue. So some interesting things here. Both this organization and the data set are getting about the same number of new customers in the door. So that's interesting to see. But this organization is getting many more of their long-standing folks to make up a percentage of their sales, more so than the aggregated data set. But this particular organization is falling behind with getting first-timers to come back, getting them to come with some more regularity, think those 2 or 3 times, and even up to 4 or 5 times. So in that case, what we're seeing here, you could log in and say, oh, wow, we're having a retention problem compared to the larger data sets. So we may want to think about why more of our customers aren't coming back who are at their earlier stages of engagement with regularity. So again, some light bulbs of ahas that come out of looking at this data. Okay, and last but not least, we'll look at donation behavior in the data set. So this is another place that you could log into, and you see a number of things going on here, comparing back again to 2019, how many patrons we've had give to date compared to the same period in 2019. So we're actually up 3%, really exciting. Number of gifts per patron, 1.3 this year versus 1.4 in 2019, so down just a little bit. Donations to date, so this is number of patrons, this is how many donations they're giving, so up 1%. So some other exciting news. But the average gift value, so this is really interesting. So even though we're tracking essentially ahead, we're down revenue-wise. Our revenue is 14 million, almost 15 versus 48 million in 2019, so down 70%. Why is that? Well, our gift size is significantly smaller this year versus 2019, almost 3,000 versus 9,600. So that could be some red flags to say, oh, we need to dig into our data set a little more and find out, hey, if we're getting about the same number of people participating, why aren't they giving out the same size gifts that they used to? Is that because we're getting more gifts from newer people? Did our long-standing folks not want to participate? I point you in some of those good directions. So yeah, so different things that you can slice and dice by, different red flags it might raise, or different light bulbs of how to act in different ways. And those are the kind of things we can talk through as we have these follow-up webinars over the course of 2023 to say, hey, this is how the data is performing. What are some ideas and thoughts that we might want to do? The other thing that we can do is share industry-wide trends back to you. So we do this with other organizations. We actually have a partnership with the League of American Orchestras, where we do a similar style of partnership that we're talking about today, and we share these industry-wide data trends. So for example, this was data we do annual reports. So at the end of 2022 last year, we shared how different genres of performing arts organizations are comparing to pre-pandemic amounts, because organizations say to us, oh, it's great to just compare ourselves against other orchestras, but we'd love to know how's theater performing, how's performing arts centers, that's PAC, how dance is performing compared to us. So we can slice and dice the data for you that way. So this was interesting to see at the end of 2022. Dance, or 2022 is this light green color. 2021 was the blue. 2020 is sort of the sage color. Each of those years comparing back to 2019 in terms of ticket sales. Some interesting things. Every year we get a little bit closer, so that's exciting. And in 2022, dance and performing arts centers actually surpassed pre-pandemic amounts. Orchestra got pretty close. This is all North America data. So why? What happened? So this was boosted in performing arts centers by Broadway tours. So a lot of the performing arts centers have Broadway tours come into their venues. That lifted a lot of revenue. Also in the dance world, Nutcracker had a really strong year last year, and that really helped push dance through the roof. And you can see that here in this. We can also look at it not just by genre, but we can share reports back to you all as a whole, month by month, to see where are months performing better or worse than pre-pandemic. So this doesn't look at the full year, but looks at a 6-month window, Q4 of 2022 and Q1 of 2023 versus those same quarters in 2019. And you can see here, November was the only month. The purple here is 2020, those 6-month quarters. The blue is the pre-pandemic. So the purple here outpaced pre-pandemic. And why did that happen? I like to call it the Mariah Carey effect. Some of you may have seen this. She does it every year. She, November 1st, comes out and says it's time in some video. This year she was in ice, and she hit some high notes that crack the ice. And then that Christmas song started that many of us know so well and really kicked off excitement around the holiday season. I bring this up kind of cheekily, but I call it the eventification of things. So what Mariah does so well is she creates Christmas is such an amazing event, and we saw the amazing spillover of that in ticket sales last year. People had some pent-up interest and excitement around going to holiday programming, and you see that here in this November data, which also meant that people bought not super early, but once November started, there was kind of a little bit of a rocket ship of sales for performances that were happening in December. So, that's an interesting aha around how we eventicize some of our concerts to build more excitement and participation. So other things that we're seeing, you saw this dashboard earlier in the tour, but around typology, who's coming back and what does that look like sector writ large? So 2022, this is comparing 2022 participation, ticket buyers, to 2019. Again, purple is 2022, the blue is 2019. We see some interesting shoots of growth happen there. So new customers outpaced 2019 for folks participating in the benchmark, and stale and lapsed. So people who haven't been with us in 18 months or more, starting to come back and reactivate their participation with us. So exciting things to think about. We have new people coming in the door. Let's invite them and think about how we retain those. And we're reactivating some of our lapsed folks. So it's exciting to see them finally probably break out of some of their ice a bit to come back. But some of the red flags here, as we saw on the similar slide earlier, once befores, convertees, actives, people who are at earlier stages of their loyalty building with us are coming back slower than even pre-pandemic levels. So that says we're having a retention problem. So that might mean different kinds of messaging or different investment in retention strategies, or thinking about what's resonating or not with those folks and how do we get to the bottom of it. Okay, some other things to look at in terms of lenses, ticket sales, so trends we can share. So this is looking at US data. This is sort of hot off the presses. For a 10-month comparison, the last 10 months we've been in, January through October 2023 versus January through October of 2019. So in the US, performing arts organizations, revenue down 5%, units down 20%. So revenue for ticket sales is recovering faster than units. In Canada, it's an interesting and different story. So same 10-month period. So again, this is brand new data, hot off the presses. So this is the kind of thing we can be sharing with you. Is revenues down 24% ticket sales, and units are down 32%. So Canada's struggling to gain traction. It's not coming back as quickly as things are happening in the US. And I know Canada was shut down longer, had some resurgences of lockdown protocols. So all of those things, as you all know so well, are causing factors and having a little bit of a hangover effect in terms of getting people to come back. We have to re-engage them to recreate their habits of attending again. Perhaps breaking out of that ice, some high notes might help them.
Excuse me, Eric, we have a
Yeah,
question here.
yes.
Someone asked, could you please define units?
Oh, units is number of tickets. So essentially single ticket buyers, the number of tickets that were sold, or if you're thinking of subscriptions, which is included here, it's the number of tickets within a package. So essentially number of seats would be another way to look at it.
Thank you.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you. Great question to ask. So you also heard me say we have a relationship with the League of American Orchestras to help share this data with them as well. We can do similar things with you all. So this was a 6-month report we did for them that looked at just US orchestras and how they were comparing to pre-pandemic levels. So we were looking at the first 6 months of 2023 compared to the first 6 months of 2019. And revenue was actually up 1%. So that was really exciting to see. Units, as we just talked about, number of seats, were still down 8%. But this was a exciting breakthrough to see this revenue start to lift up. So we've been doing these sort of 6-month comparisons for a few years now with them. So we're collectively as a group analyzing and understanding where that growth is happening. We also can look at it from a regional standpoint. So this is something we've also sliced and diced for the League of American Orchestras. So if we get enough participation from orchestras in Canada, we can look at regions for you all as well. So we could look at, as you see here, like the Midwest versus the Northeast versus the South versus the West, or all. We could look at provinces in Canada as a similar way to do it. So this is a way to help us imagine how we can continue to slice and dice the data. But we were looking at 2023 for the first 6 months versus 2019 orchestras by region. And revenue here is in the green, units is in the blue. So interesting to see where in the US some heat was starting to happen, which helped us talk with those orchestras who from there. So here you see in the West, revenue was up 13%. So we were able to put some highlights on why that was happening with folks participating, and then asking folks in the Northeast and Midwest to kind of share what strategies they're doing as well, because they're tracking a little farther behind. So interesting to look at. We also were able to do this by average paid ticket, same time period, January through June. We did a 6-month window. Again, we could set different timelines for you all as well. But interesting to look at average ticket prices, paid price, not listed price, but sort of per capita revenue. So average paid price, 2019 in the blue, 2023 in the green, and kind of across the board, even though units are down in some places, average ticket paid amount was kind of up writ large. So that helps us understand, should we be holding ticket sales? Should we be raising them? What is the market telling us? So some ahas there as well. Same thing we could look at with you all on a donation side. So this is looking at US donations, January through October, same lenses, 2019 versus 2023 for these first 10 months. Revenue down 29%, units, number of gifts down 10%. So we actually saw, this is sort of a retrenchment in the US. We were actually up substantially in 2021. And since then, we've seen some struggles and slides where I've actually gone in the opposite direction than I think folks would want us to as a sector. Same thing in Canada. Last 10 months of those organizations participating in the data set, revenue down 24% and units down 46. So number of gifts down almost a half. So interesting. I wouldn't say aha there, but keep using the red flag there. Why is that happening? Why are we seeing not as many people come back? It could be, usually donors come out of ticket buyers. So if we're having higher struggles with ticket buyers coming back, that has a relationship with how many donors might be happening. So that's there's a relationship we could dig into or discuss with you about what are some of the whys and drivers behind that. In the US orchestras, so we're able to look into this data as well. This was part of that 6-month report we did at the end of June. So January through June 2023 versus 2019. Revenue down 5% for US orchestras, but units actually up 12%. This was a really interesting aha. So they're getting actually more donors coming in the door, but when they do, they're giving at smaller dollar amounts than pre-pandemic. So is all the messaging resonating or not? People are hearing the quest to join, but perhaps because they're earlier in their giving phases, they're not ready to give at the higher levels yet. It's interesting things to map typology on top of that to try to understand what's going on. Same thing, average gift amounts we could look at as well. So 2019 here of orchestras in the US in the blue, 2023 in the green. So majority of gift sizes smaller, with exception of the West here, actually. That was that one region that was showing some bright spots are actually seeing their average giving higher than pre-pandemic amounts. So again, if we start to see similar data trends with you all, we can dig into who's in that province and why is that happening, and share that collaboratively together to understand what we can all learn and glean from that. Same thing, participation by region in the US for orchestras giving. So you see the Midwest, actually across the board units are up. That was pretty exciting to see. And the revenue in the green, some wide all over the place amounts. You see the West, who had the highest, the giving amounts that were higher than pre-pandemic, is up overall in revenue. So that makes sense there. But again, interesting ways to slice and dice. So all of this leads to hopefully ahas, head scratchers, we hope even, poke holes in the data, light bulbs, all different ways that we can be using the data to learn, question, strategically plan, and think in ways to fuel that recovery together. So again, how you do it if you wanted to join, again, go to that same website, trgarts.com/benchmark. Instead of pressing the login, go to the join the free benchmark button there. And then it brings you to this page, which is sort of the sign up sheet. And lists here, I brought them all up. These are the CRMs that are compatible with the system. We're always adding more, but these are the current ones that are built out. So these have those digital data exchanges. We still need the hookup to happen with you all, but these are the ones that are actively participating. Like I said, we're adding more as we go, but this is the list so far. And if you were to sign up, how long would that take? We often get asked that question. From the sign up to activation, it takes about a month. So your sign up form happens. We reach out to you all with a time to talk to usually somebody in your tech department who oversees the CRM to set up those activations. We give all the instructions and talk through that together. But all those steps along the way of talking, getting the information, getting the setup happening can take about a month. It's not a solid period of month time, but collectively or over a month it takes to do that. And then folks have also asked us, how much time might that mean for my staff to get that set up? So over that month, it's about a 2 to 3 hour commitment, from calls to checking that everything is set up the right way, to looking at the instructions, those kind of things. And like I said earlier, there's an unlimited amount of logins you could have for your organization once you're set up and running. So if you want marketing folks and development folks or box office or executive team, we could help you set up all those different logins for folks. And if I didn't say it already, or if David didn't, it is free to join. So it is a way for us to all learn together. And we believe so much in the power of data that we want to make it easy for folks to be able to participate in it. So please think about joining. Be our Mariah Carey, spread the word about it. If there are folks you see on the webinar today who you think should know about this information, other orchestras or other colleagues that you have, please let them know about that. And as David said, we're going to be meeting again in February to have a sort of year-end wrap up of how things were. And hopefully that gives us enough time, if you're interested in joining, that gives that month or a little bit more than a month for you to be able to sign up for the benchmark, for the links to happen. So when we do that February data share, hopefully your organization's information is all included in that. And then we can also look at how holiday showed up as well, both in terms of performances and end of year giving as well. Like I said, you'll get a copy of this database or this presentation. You'll have my contact information. So you have other questions. If you have other questions or whatnot, or want to puzzle through things, feel free to reach out to me. You'll have that information to do that. And with that, I'm going to stop my share. And as David said, we wanted to make sure we had time for questions and see light bulbs, head scratchers, thoughts about next steps. Let's talk through that.
All right, it doesn't look like there's any questions in the chat right now, but oh, there we go. I know that some of our orchestras run their own box offices and others purchase box office services from external providers and venues. What arrangements do they need to make in order to participate and share their data?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'd recommend bringing that other service provider into it. So we have a lot of organizations who join who might be part of consortiums. So that exists, or they might, rent if they don't have their own venue, they use the box office for, of that other venue to house their data. So bring those people into the conversations that happen once you fill out the paperwork. I'd actually even let them know ahead of time that, hey, we're thinking about doing this. We're going to sign up for it. That doesn't commit you to anything. It gets the conversation going. So I would then bring those folks to it and then talk through that together. There's all kinds of coding in different CRMs to say, hey, let's put digital walls around data that we don't want to have included. So if those CRMs for those places that are maybe a center that you perform in that houses your data as well as others, digital walls can be put up so we're not collecting the data from organizations who aren't yours, but get your data out of it. So we've worked with a lot of different organizations in a variety of setups and whatnot. We can't always solve all of them, so I want to manage expectations around that, but let's explore that together. There's often, or can be, solutions to make that work.
Perfect. Thank you so much. We have Hannah Choi who raised her hand. You should be able to unmute yourself, Hannah.
Hi, thanks, David. Hi, Eric.
Hi, Hannah.
I'm from Edmund Symphony Orchestra. We've met like years ago.
Yeah, right. So great to talk to you again.
Yeah, I have 3 questions right now to take too much of time from anyone else, but they should be quick questions. So one is, are we able to sort the data by tiers?
So give me an example of a tier that you're thinking about.
Like the size of the orchestras.
Oh, we could think about that. Yeah, so that's something David, we should put on the list of something to participate together. Yes, we could. Now, the asterisk I have there is we find, we want to make this data useful for you all and for all the insights that we share. So I would recommend there need to be a certain level of participation. Like if we only have one orchestra at, I'm making this up, 30 million, but, we only have one that's like over 10 million, and that's 30 million. To have it sorted just by the 10 million pluses wouldn't give any robust data to compare it against because it's such a small data set. So I'd recommend we could create some of those sorting based off of enough participation by tier sizes that would make sense and be helpful. Does that make sense, Hannah?
Awesome. Yeah, no, that's great if we can do that.
Yeah.
Perfect. Second question is, when you were talking about revenue compared to 19, these are just like a dollar absolute value. You're not counting the inflation, right?
Correct. And we don't really, it's interesting to think about inflation because of the way that our prices get set in the sector is, when we think about inflation in some of the ways it gets discussed that says like, hey, because of inflation, milk is more expensive than, when it was in 2019 or whatnot. So the price of milk has gone up. Like our ticket prices don't go up the same way because of inflation. We deal with it because of the repercussions of what our customers deal with. But inflation in terms of our prices, we don't tend to set them that way. So I put that lens on it to say it isn't really adjusted for inflation. If we were to do that, we probably need about like a 10 or 15 year period because of the way we do pricing, to say, would we set something that's adjusted for inflation because of that? Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that's interesting. Very interesting. Thanks for that.
Yeah.
My last question is, so probably the biggest concern that we have is probably data breach and data sharing in something like this. When we are agreeing to join, what are we agreeing to? Are we agreeing our data to be used for the benchmark study only? Is there any other areas that our patron data will be used? And also, what are some of the risks in terms of data breach?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it only gets used for the benchmark for folks who are participating to look at it. And then as you've seen here, we study it on a writ large aggregated perspective. We don't collect or get any of the patron contact information or names of, like, we don't know that Eric Nelson has bought 3 tickets to blah, blah, blah symphony package or whatever. It's really like how it's quantities. It's not personal information that gets pulled into the data set. So just to put that headline out there. And you'll see when you sign up, if you all do, we talk through with you what the data safety precautions are. We share all of that information with you. So it's all in your sort of instructions packet that you get, not only how to join, but like what are the safeties around there. And we built this with our partner, who was our partner then, called Purple 7. We've merged together as companies, and Purple 7 is housed out of the UK, and we've used UK data standards and what's the word I'm looking for? Security measures, which tend to be more stringent than other places. So it's a pretty robust, really locked down data set. Now, that being said, things can get hacked. We've never had a data breach. We've never seen what happened, but I can't with 100% certainty say it won't ever happen, but we've got a lot of safeties in place to ensure that it's protected.
Okay, no, thank you so much for that.
Great. And we also, I will say to Hannah, that we also don't share the names of participants who are like the orchestras who are participating in the data set. We don't publicly share any of that information. We would ask you all if you all as a cohort want to share who's participating name-wise, and we would, work with David and Orchestras Canada to see if we want to share those names with them also. But there's no public name that says, Toronto Symphony is participating. You wouldn't see that listed or printed anywhere.
Gotcha. No, that's good to know. Thank you.
Yeah.
Right, then I don't see any more questions for now. Guess we can do
David, can I say one other quick thing just to put it out there? Yeah. If you're not on that CRM list that you saw me list to say these are the ones that are participating where the data links can happen, that doesn't mean you can't participate in our upcoming webinars and hear the reports that happen. So we want to make sure, or I think one of the foundational elements of this is getting information into people's hands so they can, have what they need to grow strategies. So you wouldn't have a login and you wouldn't be able to look at the data that way. But if you wanted to participate in our, let's say, I think we're going to do them 3 times a year, webinars on, the insight reports and sending out you could be on the list that receive those reports. So even if you're not in that CRM list, you can still learn and participate in that in similar ways.
Amazing. And just to make sure people might be typing questions. I just wanted to say, because the question Hannah sort of asked, you reminded me of something we're currently working on, which is the topic of cybersecurity, which sort of a small OC plug here, but there's going to be registration opening on early next week. We'll be offering, in partnership with I think 7 other art services organizations in Canada, and it's going to be a training offered by the Canadian Centre for Cybersecurity, how to protect yourself and your organization as much as possible. So keep an eye out. There's going to be information going out next week.
That's great. Catherine, that magical other system that you listed in the chat. So you all may have seen this on that list of drop downs for CRMs. It does say other, so you all might be thinking, what does that mean? So we track that to get a sense. So if you hit other, it will ask you which one you use. So we do that to understand where there's the most need to add new systems into the data set. So, it takes time and resources to get them set up. So we use our priority order of who we're going to add based off of where there's the most heat from the sector. So even if you're not on that list, I highly recommend filling out that form so that your CRM gets another vote or a tally towards it that helps hopefully move it up the list in terms of priority order. So that's why it says other on that list. It is magical, as Catherine said, in some ways.
Right, it looks like there's no more questions, so I guess that must have been a clear presentation.
Good sign.
I mean, I'd like to thank you again, Eric. This was really great, and I hope we can get a lot of Canadian organizations on board so that the updates you can give them is going to be even more representative of what is actually happening up north, I guess. If there's no more questions, I would say save the date for February 15th. I think we're looking at 1 to 2 p.m., but that could also slightly vary. If there's no more questions, then thank you so much for coming today, and I will be sharing the recording soon, and hoping to see you again in about 3 months.
Yeah, and I'll just come off video for a second. Hopefully that won't.
There we go.
Yeah.
Hello again.
Cause too many issues here. But thank you all so much. It was really a pleasure to be with you all. And I'll just put that offer out one more time. Be our Mariah Carey. If there weren't folks here that you think should have been, please spread the word. Again, the more folks who can join, the stronger the data set and the more insights we can glean from it. And I'll say one other thing as a parting. If you do join, I'm also happy to jump on a call with just you and your organization to give you a tour of the benchmark, if that's helpful as you all get up to speed on it. Happy to do that. The more usage, the more we can make it feel powerful and beneficial for you, the more you're going to get out of it, which is one of the key tenets of what we want to achieve together. So happy to be your partner in all that. So thank you. Thank you, Orchestras Canada. Thank you, everybody, for participating as well.
All right, thank you so much. Have a great day, everybody.
Take care. Cheers. Bye.